All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. We got George from a remote location, an undisclosed remote location.
You can call me Little Piggy.
We got Bitcoin doing its Friday afternoon nosedive, but the Bitcoin miners had a great day, which made up a little bit for this week. Yeah, the Bitcoin miners had a great day. I got the big board up, so some standouts. Hut was up almost 14%. TerraWolf up 11.68%. Iris Energy up, or Iron up 9.87%. Marathon up over 9%. Every single thing on the big board is green across the board. And it was a really good day for most of the Bitcoin miners after a little bit of a rough week. So we'll go to I did update the what happened this week chart for the 12 Bitcoin miners that we follow. And it was not that bad. It felt like a bad week, but you know, with this big green day on Friday, it actually was okay with the exception of one, Iris Energy, which we will talk about, which had a good day today, but tanked this week for a specific reason, which is a short report. So we'll go through that as well. So these short reports, this Bitcoin miners, this is the third or fourth company that's gone through this where they've gotten a short report. In the previous occasions, it has been a monster buying opportunity. So, you know, I don't know if that's going to be the case this time with Iron. Iron was up substantially and was already starting to pull back a little when that short report came out. We'll take a look at their chart. They had, on that one day from top to bottom, it was a disaster. They did start to recover today. I'll give you my thoughts on the short report, and then maybe we'll do a poll, and you guys can let me know what you guys think of the short report. And for the last 2+ hours, so we just gave everything back. If you look at the 15-minute chart, this gold line is where Bitcoin was, let's see, actually right here. So at the close of the U.S. equity markets yesterday, Bitcoin was at around 57,300. You can see for most of the trading day, we were above that, and we were moving up and up and up. And then in the last 2 hours of the day, down in a straight line, we pulled all the way back to where we were yesterday. So we'll see on the stream how that goes, if we hold this line or if we keep going down. We did hold an important line of support over the last several days, so we can look at that as well. How are you doing, George?
Pretty good. Just hanging up here in New York.
So George has changed locations again. He's in New York now.
Hanging up in New York.
And it's an important distinction. Upstate New York, way upstate. Oh, yeah. So most people, the spot in New York most people think of is probably 6 hours away from where you are right now.
It's so funny. I'm watching the Workhorse from the Prime, you know, Amazon Prime. They just started rolling those out. Yeah, it's so funny to see them. I've already seen one broken down, by the way.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of broken EV stocks. That's for sure.
Are they still pumping? I mean, are they still in operation?
I'll have to check my list. I thought they were gone.
Oh, really?
I know Lordstown Motor is gone. Amazon. A bunch of these went away. And I didn't even look at Tesla today. So we'll have to see what Tesla was doing. But that had a nice run recently. Let's just say hello to a few members that I see in the chat. Cleanspark to 100. Hello. Robert Anderson. Hello. Also, if everybody could do us a giant favor and smash the like button, that is much appreciated. We're at 22 likes. We're shooting for 100 likes and then 200 likes. And let's see what happens. But let's see if we can get to 100 first. It helps the live stream out a lot in real time as we continue to watch Bitcoin drift downwards. So we did in yesterday, we got as high as $59,533. So we're over $2,000 down from that right now. Today in the middle of the day, we got up to 58,500. So, we're $1,200 off of our high from the middle of the trading day today. So, that's for Bitcoin, that's not great, but the Bitcoin miners, and I was waiting patiently to see what happened here in the afternoon. A lot of Friday afternoons, we've seen these really nice green day for Bitcoin miners just disappear, and it didn't happen today. So that was very encouraging price action all day today, especially really the last half of the day, which the Friday afternoon sell-off, that has been real for the Bitcoin miners. But they had a little bit of a pause this week. The Bitcoin miners have been on fire for the last 3 months, and we'll look at that chart as well. But a little bit of a pause this week.
I pulled up Workhorse. It's still trading. It's $1.72 right now. It made it up to almost $700. Isn't that crazy?
Well, that accounts for all of their reverse stock splits. So that number keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger because they keep having to do reverse stock splits to stay in business. Or at least listed on the NASDAQ.
$32 million market cap.
Wow, and that was a multi-billion-dollar company at one point.
Yeah.
So that is the train wreck that is. See, unlike there was a time in the middle, the middle and last half of the year 2022, really all of the year 2022, during the crypto winter. The small cap EVs were getting wrecked. Actually, all the EV companies except Tesla were getting wrecked as well in a similar fashion, down 70, 80, 90%. Some of them 95%. A bunch of them went out of business. But the Bitcoin miners have recovered. A lot of them are up, anywhere from 300 to 500 or 600%, or some of them substantially more than that from their bottom in the middle of crypto winter. The EV stocks have not had that rebound. So and so many of the small cap, micro cap, nano cap stocks have not rebounded. Although I will say this week we will talk about CPI data because that, in my opinion, was by far the biggest news that came out this week, and that is by far the biggest thing that's going to affect all of these stocks on a going forward basis. And we can talk that. We can talk what it looks like the market is now thinking with potential rate cuts. So this, I don't want to say it was a game changer, but it was a very good CPI report. It's exactly what the market was looking for. Particularly, the Russell 2000 had one of its best days in years, literally years. So I'm just going to switch to that quickly. This green candle was yesterday, so you can see, this was a gigantic day. Remember, these indexes, typically don't move like this. This was just under a 4% move in one day for the Russell 2000, which, as we've been pounding the table on this channel, the Russell 2000, for obvious reasons, has lagged while the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ continue to hit new all-time high after new all-time high. The Russell 2000 is way behind, and it is nowhere near its new all-time high. It's nowhere near where it was, 3 years ago. But I think on that news, on the CPI data, you'll see this gigantic green candle with a follow-up green candle, went up from there today. On Wednesday, both the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 hit new all-time highs again. And the S&P 500 in intraday today actually went even higher. It just didn't close at a new all-time high today. So it did hit a new all-time high again today. The NASDAQ didn't quite do that. But the markets have been off to the races. Obviously, the giant cap stocks are still doing their things, but we're starting to see a change, in my opinion. So that is the Russell 2000.
How's NVIDIA doing, Tom?
Let's go look at NVIDIA. They're still over $3 trillion market cap. But let's see what they did today. Up 1.4% today. So they're at 3.1, call it $3.18 trillion. So for a minute, they became the largest company in the world. Since then, I'll go to that chart. Apple has just surged. we are now on a path to, and this just boggles my mind, Apple's now on its way to a potentially being the first $4 trillion market cap company. So I'm going to go, I'll refresh this and make sure these numbers are right. So we now have, these three companies have flip-flopped. Each one of these has been number one within the last month. And these three companies you can see, NVIDIA is just under $3.2 trillion. Alphabet, or Google, is almost $1 trillion less than that. And these are monsters. Alphabet over $2 trillion, Amazon over $2 trillion. I mean, those are gigantic companies, but, you know, there's these top three. But you can see Apple is now over $3.5 trillion. This is the largest market cap of any company in the history of the world. So, you know, as these companies continue, if this rally continues, and it just seems like it just keeps going, right? There, I mean, you've got these potentially 2 or 3 companies. Apple's more than halfway from $3 trillion to $4 trillion. So we'll see what happens. It's obviously not calling that or predicting that. It's way too soon to see, you know, but this is the biggest market cap in the history of any company anywhere ever in the history of the world. And hello to a bunch of new members. Let's see, or a bunch of members that just joined in. Ricky, I think I might have already said hello to Robert. Robin, hello. JD, Beatrice, hello. What's next for Bitfarms, for Riot and Bitfarms? So we'll go through that. A bunch of stuff happened this week, including a press release today on what's going on in that situation. So that continues. And that press release tells me this is going to go on for the rest of the year. So that is what it is starting to look like. Riot's dug in its heels, and we won't spend the whole stream on that. I know, but we certainly got to.
I remember I said it's been good at poker.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's on. The battle rages on. I see somebody saying hello from Texas in Oregon. Crypto Rich is asking anywhere near Buffalo. Right.
What'd you say?
Crypto Rich is asking, are you anywhere near Buffalo?
Yes.
Yes, in fact, George is near Buffalo.
But let's put it this way. I'm going to the training camp next week. Is it next week or the week after?
Oh, you're going to go to the Bills training camp?
Yeah, there isn't any other professional NFL team besides them. Stay over here, guys.
Oh, that should be fun.
Yeah.
Well, it begins.
We're going to try to do dinner with Alan. I thought that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I'll get pictures.
Scott Richardson saying, finally a Friday where CleanSpark shareholders are very happy. Yeah, everything was up. CleanSpark up about 6%, a little bit off of its highs from the day, but a nice day across the board. I mean, there really wasn't, you know,
Come on, Theo.
BitDeer, Core Scientific, they were up around 4%. Bitfarms, I think, looks like they were the low out of the 12 that we're following. I've got all 19 on this chart, plus MicroStrategy, which was green as well. So everything was green today, and you know, pretty much a good day across the board. TeraWulf, which is the best performer on the year, had, you know, a big day in double digits, up just under 12%. Robert Anderson saying, how does Hut make money? I don't know how they make money, but I'll tell you this, their shareholders are making money. Hut Hut was up almost 14% today. That has been, I'll go to that chart real quickly. We got a lot of news to get to, so I do want to get to that, but let's look at Hut's chart. I mean, this stock has had a run.
Stop it, Theo.
You know, from it bottom, you can see all these bottoms it's had in 2024.
Stop it.
So, you know, from April.
Get in there.
That's up 140%. from April 16th. And April 16th is that day where we talked about it that day and pretty much every day since. We kind of felt like that was the bottom for the Bitcoin miners, or at least we hoped it was. It did work out that way so far. And you can see HUT up 141%, you know, in the last 3 months. So, and they're one of the ones that had a short report. So, you know, if you bought on that short report, we're going to get to Iris Energy. They had a short report come out. I don't think it made a lot of sense. I find it a little confusing. So we'll see what you guys think. We should get a poll going. If you're new or if you just joined, if you could do us a great big favor, we're at 45 likes. If you could smash the like button, it does help the stream out in real time, and it helps the channel out. So we appreciate it very much. And then I want to let me get a poll up real quickly. One second, I'm just typing. I apologize. Okay, so let's just see where everybody's at. It looks like George might be fading in and out. He's walking around. So, Bitcoin's next move. Right, we've been stuck. Let me get to the Bitcoin chart while I'm talking about this. We've been pretty much, I'll go to the 1 day. You know, since we had this move to the downside, we got under 60,000 on July 3rd. We've been trading between, really, we got as low as 53.5. But mostly you can see this line at 56.5 has been kind of the bottom of the trading range. And we really haven't gotten back to this 60,000. So where do we go from here? This is the new trading range. Somewhere between, you know, 56 and 59,000 is where we've been for the last, this was last Thursday. So, you know, that's 8 days ago. We've been trading kind of sideways. I think it's a little encouraging. This line of support seems to have found some footing, but the question is, what's next? So we'll see what you guys think is next. In the meantime, I want to go. So I think we should quickly go through CPI because that is what's dictating everything right now. So let's talk about. Let me find what I'm looking for. Okay, here we go. So let's go to the chart. You're going to see yesterday, before the U.S. equity markets open, CPI data came out. So last month was 3.3. Consensus, the market was expecting 3.1. We came in under that at 3.0. And if you read a little bit into this, this was better, obviously better than expected. The annual inflation rate, and I won't read this whole thing, I'm just going to pick a few sentences. The annual inflation rate in the U.S. fell for a third straight month to 3% in June, the lowest since June of 2023. In May, below the forecast of 3.1. Okay. This, I think, is important. The CPI unexpectedly declined 0.1% for the first fall. In other words, the first decrease since May of 2020. So that's 4 years ago, following a flat reading and compared to expectations of a 0.1 rise. So I think this was really good news, you know, for what we're looking for. We're starting to see, you know, unemployment ticked up to 4.1%. Inflation, you know, these are not the numbers the Fed, this isn't the finish line, but this is what they were looking for. These type of trends on both sides of the equation, because remember, it's their dual mandate is full employment and, you know, to keep interest at their target rate of 2%. So obviously they're not there yet, but you can see on this chart, March was 3.5, April 3.4, May 3.3, now we're at 3.0. That's the lowest out of the last 12 months. And month over month, you know, all of these numbers were better than expected. And it led to, let's go to the Fed futures, because this is the bottom line. So still, this is the Fed watch tool. So this is what the futures are pricing in for potential rate cuts. So you can see there's a meeting coming up in a few weeks on July 31st. Still really 93% probability is priced in that there will be no rate cut unless something very unusual happens. I just think it would be a shock if there was a rate cut in the July meeting. So the market's kind of taken that off the table. They haven't completely eliminated that possibility. You guys can drop in the comments if you think we will get a rate cut in July, but you know, it's about a 6.7% chance built into the futures, so that is unlikely. However, this has changed dramatically over the last month. There is now, we have 88% of a 25 basis point rate cut and then 6% of a 50 basis point rate cut. So, you know, we're at over 94% chance built into the futures that the Fed cuts rates in September. So we have been waiting and waiting and waiting, and it looks to me like, you know, we haven't been up to these numbers in a long time. At the end of 2023, the market was expecting these rate cuts to come early in 2024, like March, but, you know, things changed. And they still can change, so this is no guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. But we have a bunch of data points now, and this is what the Fed wants to rely on. They're not going to do something because they got one good number. But now they have several good numbers they can start to hang their hat on. So if this trend continues, you can see the market has really priced in, you know, an almost, there's no certainty here, but a high probability that there will be a rate cut in September. And if I go to December 18th, which is the last meeting of the year, you can see the market is split between really 2 or 3 rate cuts by the end of the year. So with a tiny fraction saying 4, and I'm talking about 25 basis point rate cuts, so that would be a full 1%. So a 3.5% chance of that doesn't seem likely, but you're starting to see, you know, from, you know, this is where we are right now. It looks like the market thinks we're going to get a rate cut in September and then maybe 1 or 2 more by the end of the year. And that will start to fall in line with, you know, what the market was expecting much earlier in the year. Hey, George, welcome back.
Sorry, my phone died.
That's all right. We figured you got lost in the, seems like you were going through the swamp.
I felt like it. Hey, I have a question with short reports, though, by the way.
Yes.
How long do they usually take to, like, they just do their thing and then they go back up normally, at least with the Bitcoin miners?
Yeah, I mean, and you can see today already, Iris Energy was one of the big winners on the day today. There were 3 that were up a bunch, and Iron was one of them. So I think it's already started to turn around. And it was pulling back. Several of these Bitcoin mining stocks had vicious runs to the upside in the last 2 or 3 months. So to see a little bit of a pullback, I think this was a well-timed short report. I'm sure this company made a bunch of money shorting the heck out of this stock. They're arguing. So good question, George. Let's go to that short report. And then in a rare instance, another company actually put out a report defending, you know, their position on iron and kind of rejecting the short report. So you don't normally see that. So let's just take a quick look at what the heck was going on here. Just gotta find the right tab. Okay, so I got a couple of these open. We'll start with this one. Iron tumbles after short seller calls the miner Prius at the Grand Prix. So for those of you, the exact quote was down here. To analogize, Iron claims that it's set to win the Monaco Grand Prix, but it just arrived to the track in a Toyota Prius. So that's what the short report said, and they're basically saying, this short report is centered, and it's Culper was who put out the short report, which disclosed its short selling position. So that's how these short reports work, right? They've got a big short position and they disclose that, and then they go on to say they think the stock is garbage. The quote, Iron talks a big game of its high performance computing plans, but ultimately seems entirely disinterested in actually doing what it takes to compete in the space, claimed Culper in a July 11th short seller report. So really the whole thesis for this short report is that Iris Energy's data centers are not set up for high performance computing, and they're not even going to be able to set them up because they don't use immersion cooling. They're not even going to be capable of the high performance computing. Conversely, I will tell you, the CEO of Iris Energy has been pounding the table for the last year plus that this is their expertise. And he, in fact, has said time after time, all these companies that have this immersion cooling, particularly in Texas, and it's certain types of immersion cooling, he said they're going to find out it doesn't really work the way that they hope that it's going to work, and our data centers are going to be better. So my big thing is I do not think that, the massive amount of value here that this stock is trading at, while they talk about their expertise, all of their money that they're raising, everything they're doing is to grow their exahash. Remember, they came into this year at 5.5 exahash. For those of you who are members, I just did a members only deep dive on this week. They came into this year at 5.5 exahash, and they're looking to get to 30 exahash by the end of the year, 40 exahash by the middle of next year. So that is of Bitcoin mining capacity. So, this is not a company that's hanging its hat on making a massive shift to AI. Yes, their high performance computing revenue has increased steadily on a monthly basis, but it's a small fraction of their total revenue. This short report made very little sense to me. I want to see if I can find somebody came out actually. Okay, so let's see. Okay, Bernstein came out in response and said, Iris Energy has committed most of Childress site to expansion of Bitcoin mining. That from Bernstein. The Bitcoin miners' shares slumped yesterday after a Culper research report said that the site was unsuitable for artificial intelligence and high-performance computing. We'll look at the charts, so I'm not going to go through that. So Bernstein came out in response and said, the company, however, has committed most of the planned expansion at the site to Bitcoin mining. Broker Bernstein said in a research report, and the existing power and data center infrastructure there works very well for that purpose. Iris Energy has not claimed it intends to retrofit its Bitcoin mining site in Childress to AI, this particular analyst said. So this is to my point. This short report, again, maybe they made a lot of money on it, and maybe they're right, and, I'm wrong. But my opinion is I don't even understand this short report. It is clear that if you look at the last basically 7 or 8 press releases and operational updates, they have been crystal clear, right? They've put $800 million into building out their Bitcoin mining facilities. So to say they're going to fail at AI, it's a very tiny percentage of their business right now. Yes, they do intend for it to grow and be a bigger part of their business over time, but I think this was just a reason to short the stock, put out a report, and now I'm going to go to the chart and show you how much money they made on this.
Do you think they got out already?
Oh, I mean, I can't say that for a fact, but I would think they got out that day. I think that's what these guys do. Obviously, that's my speculation. That is not a fact. So if you look, Iris Energy already had a little pullback. The run up in this stock, like I said, I mean, this was just since May 1st. So, a couple of months. This stock was up 278% since May 1st. So there was room for a pullback. So, for them to have pulled back a little bit is not some giant shock. But intraday, on the day this report came out, they were actually up on the day. So from the top to the bottom, that's almost a 27% move the day this short report came out. So, I don't know how much of that they caught, but my guess is they made a bunch of money on that day. And now you can see there was a candle wick to the downside. So from the bottom yesterday, so conversely, if you timed this the other way, from the bottom yesterday to the close today, Iris is up 20%. So it looks like this short report was short-lived, and we're already moving back up. And I want to put a poll out. I'll go through the results of this poll. Bitcoin's next move back.
That's amazing, by the way.
Those moves.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, this is how these guys make money. Volatility equals, money. Okay, so on the last poll, Bitcoin's next move back over 60,000. 57% think that is our next move. Sideways, 25%. So that makes up the vast majority. 9% think we're going to go back down and retest 52,000, and another 9% think we're going to go under 52,000. So if you aggregate this, from sideways to up is 80%-ish, and 52 or less is 20. So that's, a lot. We've had a lot of our polls on this channel are falling into this 80-20, plus or minus 1 or 2% of the 80-20 rule. So 80% are somewhere between going sideways and back up. 26 now down to 16% think we're, headed down. I mean, I my personal opinion. Well, George, what's your thought? What do you think's going on?
I mean, I know the FUD, me, Mount Gox, and Germany.
And I have an update on Germany.
I mean, they gotta work. We just gotta work through them. That's it. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter, because I'm still thinking by the end of this month we could still see unbelievable numbers in Bitcoin.
Unbelievable high or low?
High.
So you still think we could have a run up?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think we could have a retest of lower numbers?
It all just depends on how it times out. You know what I mean? If it times out, because during the day is the strength now with Bitcoin, and after hours, and the weekends and after hours is not strong anymore. So it just depends. You know what I mean? If they want to do it with malicious intent, they could. Does that make sense?
Right, and we'll look at, that's right, we're going to look at the flow of the ETFs and some other things. And George mentioned some other things that are, between Mt. Gox and Germany. We'll take a look at those. There's a lot of, so this is why there's I'm pretty conflicted. I don't take anything off the table, and I'll go back to the Bitcoin one-day chart. We candle wicked down on May 1st, which was 2.5 months ago now, not quite 2.5 months ago, to 56,500. We did hit a lower low, right? We're 4 months going sideways, and the bias in this 4 months has really been to the downside. We're trading at the very bottom of our 4-month range. We did spend the last week consolidating around this line, so that is encouraging. It seems like maybe the next move is up, but you can't, I don't think anybody on this channel can honestly tell themselves, man, it would really be shocking if we go retest 52,000. We were at 53,500 a week ago. So this goes to the volatility. So I'm in a position, my answer to that, and I think it's similar to yours, George, I'm still I think by the end of the year, we're going to be hitting much higher numbers. I think by the end of this bull market, my number remains, at 150K or more. you know, again, not financial advice. That's my opinion of where this bull market is going for Bitcoin. But, you know, in this short term, until we get through some of these things they've thrown at us, and I do think once we get to if we get to September and we get that rate cut, then I think, you know, that will be the end of whatever amount of, you know, downward pressure. And I do think we'll start to move up steadily from there. But between now and then, I still think we'll move up between now and then. But I'm certainly, I don't think anybody can sit here and say you're going to be shocked if we retest some numbers. So that would be my biggest takeaway on this is I just think, you know, we talk about volatility nonstop on this channel because that's what Bitcoin is. That's what cryptocurrencies are. Obviously, the Bitcoin miners are even more volatile than Bitcoin itself. So, you know, this is volatility all over the place. But for me, I'm a buy and hold. Let's see. Iron just needs to keep bringing exahash online, and they will do really well. That from Robert Anderson, who is a member. So let's go. Where was I just going to go, George, before I got sidetracked? Did we get through this Iris Energy short report? Oh, I wanted to put up a poll. That was my point of this. So let's just quickly see what everybody thinks. So I'll just make this a yes or no.
By the way, Tom, I had no idea how big AI actually is, by the way.
How big
AI is, well, how big it's going to be.
Like go ahead.
In the world, in the world, just endless, you know what I mean?
Its impact.
Oh, its impact is going to be brutal. I don't think it's good, personally. I think it's terrible.
Because
it's going to lay off a lot of people.
Jobs.
Yes, I listened to somebody, I won't say the name of the insurance company, but they plan on taking their staff in half right after the election. And then by the end of 2025, they plan on going half again of their total staff.
That's astronomical. Yeah.
And they have over 60,000 members right now. I mean, employees.
So, I mean, that is a legitimate fear. Is AI going to start to replace jobs? I mean, we've gone through this. This is not the first thing, you know, automation, no. You know, there's been a lot of things that have chipped away.
Yeah, India, the call centers, remember?
Right. Jobs have gone overseas, you know, for those in the United States. So I remain more skeptical than you on where.
Well, and here's the other thing. And here's the other thing, though. Like, I don't know if you go to McDonald's and you order a burger. You know, there's like a little stupid, because, you know, I drove. And there's a little stupid kiosk and you do all the work yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's more and more automation. There's no doubt. There's automation. You know, you guys, people in other, you know, George and I are in the U.S. If you're in other countries, let us know if that's happening, you know, in your area. We're seeing a lot of, particularly in retail places, you know, places like Walmart, places like fast food places, switching out over to automated checkout, those kind of things, you know, replacing employees.
Home Depot just did it, and I was in shock. They went from like 6 or 7 cashiers an hour to almost every single one being self-checkout.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see more and more of that, and a lot of it is, you know, the wages, you know, it's just become very difficult for these companies to afford to pay. And whether it's difficult or not, if it's, if they can save money, these are big companies, especially the publicly traded companies. They're in the business of maximizing their profitability, and if it saves them money, they're gonna do it, and we're seeing them do it. So we're gonna have to see where that leads. I mean, we are very early days on the whole high performance computing / AI part of this. I will say this: I do think a lot of the AI stocks are getting very overheated. So, that doesn't mean there's more to come. These runs, when they start happening, they can keep going, right? We could be only halfway through this push in the whole AI universe from an investment standpoint, in the stocks. And I think we're nowhere near. We're at the very early stages of, high performance computing and AI getting implemented into, across every business everywhere.
Yeah. And that was actually the small business, and a conversation I had with somebody else was amazing about how they plan on getting rid of like the bookkeeper, how you can generate an invoice automatically. They're just, speak to text, and it will just like automatically generate it out for you. Any customer service problems after hours, like attorneys, like you listen to this one. You know how attorneys like man their phones after hours for, in a rec, call us.
Right.
Well, they have a new program out there that handles all the questions. You won't even know you're not talking to a real person.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's crazy.
I mean, I think we're going to see more and more of that. We have somebody from Spain saying in Spain you have to pay by yourself in the supermarket. So it sounds like self-checkout in Spain. So, and we're getting a lot of that.
Just interesting.
We're getting a hybrid in the U.S., at least in the areas that I've seen. George, you've been in 3 different states over the last few months. So any difference, or are you starting to see the self-checkout stuff everywhere?
Oh, let's put it this way. Home Depot rolled it out in Atlanta because that's where they're from, and that's going, nationwide probably in 6 months, you know what I mean? Or something like that. They're going to work out the kinks on it. But I mean, think about it. There's like one person for like 12 checkouts. I was just like, for 12 individual checkouts.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. And that used to be one at every checkout. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to see. Wegmans, the supermarket Wegmans, they have a small self-checkout, but the majority, I would imagine they're going to be changing because it's like the in thing to do right now.
The question, and my only question, and I have no way of knowing the answer to this, is how much is that costing them in people kind of walking away with some
software.
Well, I'm saying just in the self-checkout process, okay, take these 2-3 items for free. It's that part of it. So I'm sure the big companies have done the math. It's going to cost us this much in people stealing versus what we save in payroll. And that is just one piece of AI. Obviously, we don't even know the different ways this is going to either create jobs or erase jobs.
Who was the guy? I was just a billionaire just died here recently in the last 2 months, and he made the highest returns, which he averaged 39% a year. Better than Warren Buffett.
That's spectacular.
Do you know who this is? And he did it for almost like 30 years.
I only know because you sent me an article on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and that's before AI, Tom. Can you imagine now?
I just read an article yesterday or the day before that only 19% of money managers so far in the year 2024 are beating the S&P 500. So that means 80% of the people who have given their money to a money manager, that money manager is losing to, if you would have just bought SPY, which is the ETF for the S&P 500, you'd be doing better. Now, year's not over, and it's hard to judge in smaller time frames, but that's been pretty consistent over the last several years. Most fund managers don't beat the S&P 500.
That's crazy.
So that goes to speak how hard this investing stuff is. So for all, here we are, everybody on this channel, obviously, we're all retail investors. So, if you're feeling like this is tough, it is.
It is.
It just is.
Hardest game I've ever played. Hardest game I've ever played. Because you have emotions. And it's real. It's not AI.
It's real.
Tom, how's the DXY doing?
So let's take a look at the DXY. Because the DXY has been moving down, and it took... So we are now starting to see a trend, and obviously yesterday, so this was Thursday, was a big red candle down. We were already, you can see, we were already trending down. And then Thursday, when CPI came out, the DXY, which the DXY is the strength of the US dollar. So this typically has an inverse relationship with Bitcoin that has broken a little bit in recent times, and it can break, but over the course of time, it's a pretty strong inverse relationship. As the stronger the dollar gets, the worse it is for Bitcoin, the worse it is for the small cap stocks, and then conversely, when this pulls back, those usually run. So with CPI data yesterday, the DXY had a big pullback yesterday and then another one today. So if you take a look, you can see we are right at this line that it's been testing. So can we break below that? Because this goes all the way back to April. So we've been bouncing off of pretty much this exact spot that we closed at today since April. So if we can take the next leg down, I think that would be very bullish for Bitcoin, for the Bitcoin miners. So we're at a very interesting spot on the DXY. I definitely think this is something we should keep a close eye on.
That's one of the reasons why I have a high confidence level in Bitcoin right now, by the way, after a couple, the 21st.
Is that this DXY right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're, if we can take this next leg down, if we can get below this green line was a 20-year high as of 2022. That was a 20-year high. Since then, we've been bouncing on either side of this 20-year high for the last couple of years. So, but it does, when we break below this, usually that's when we get some really nice runs. So if we can just take this next leg down, possibly Bitcoin can take that next leg up and maybe get back on, this bull run that, short term here over the last month, over the last 4 months, we've been sideways consolidating. Over the last 1 month, Bitcoin's having a pullback. But, in the big picture, we're still very much in the bull market. We have not broken that trend as of yet. So I think most of us think, that's not, although we did a poll here last week and like 18% of the people thought that the bull run was over for this cycle. So maybe we'll try that poll again today and see if this group feels differently or if this last week has changed people's minds. Robin is saying AI will put retail buyers and sellers of stocks out of business. My only response to that is I still do think if you are, if you're trying to day trade or swing trade, it may get more and more increasingly difficult. But if you're buying and holding, I still think there's going to be room for retail investors in that regard. Because money still, I do think money will still rotate. We always see the rotation of money in, one sector to the next, from the large caps to the small caps, from the risk off to the risk on. So I do think all of that will still happen, even with AI trading. So, on a second to second or minute to minute basis, it may be, next to impossible to play that game. But I do think for, buy and hold investors or longer term swing trades, I guess, however you want to call it, I still think there'll be room for that. But, we'll see. Time will tell. Pogo's asking, what about Bitfarms? Are people still buying Bitfarms? Are we buying? Are we selling? So we can talk about Bitfarms because Bitfarms had a bunch of news this week. So we should just bring everybody up to speed on Bitfarms and see what's going on there. We're at 87 likes. If everybody could do us a giant favor, if you've not smashed the like button, it does help the channel out a lot. It helps the live stream out a lot. So it is much appreciated. Okay, so let's see. Let's get to Bitfarms because there was a bunch of Bitfarms news. I'm going to go back. First, I'm going to just go back to our 15-minute. Okay, so let's take it. Well, we'll start at the end. So this came out today, this morning. Bitfarms sets date for a special meeting of shareholders. So Riot has been called, and all this goes to, for those of you not familiar, and I'm sure most of you or many of you are familiar, Riot is trying to buy Bitfarms. They currently hold 14.9% of the outstanding shares in Bitfarms. They are trying to add 3 members to the board. They want a special meeting of the shareholders to have a vote on adding members to the board. So today, Bitfarms did set a date for a special meeting of the shareholders. Now, they just had their annual shareholder meeting, but now they're going to have another meeting. So let's see. Okay, so Bitfarms has called for a hybrid special meeting of shareholders to be held on October 29th, 2024. So this is why at the beginning of the stream, I kind of said, it seems like this drama is going to go on for the rest of the year. Because they're not even going to have this special meeting until, the end of October. So we've got months before this is going to happen. They list out their reasons why they picked this date, and it is worth noting. One of the things that they talked about in this press release that I think is noteworthy. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, so right now there's a poison pill that kicks in if anybody owns 15% of the company or more. And a poison pill is essentially a mechanism in place that will dilute that shareholder if they get to 15% or more, which is why Riot is at 14.9%. But you can see inside of that poison pill plan that they put together, the record date is 16 days following September 10th, being the date after which Riot can increase its holdings to 19.9%. So that 15% poison pill turns into a 20% poison pill, in September. So it won't be until September that we even see as to whether or not Riot continues to buy. I mean, they bought right up to the brink, so I expect, there's a good likelihood they'll buy up to, 19.9% or just under that 20% trigger. So going into that shareholder meeting, they might own basically 20% of the outstanding shares in this company. They want to replace 3 members of the board. This basically has been put into hostile takeover territory at this point. I'm not sure where all this goes. So that's the end of the week, but there was big news from Bitfarms at the beginning of the week, so I think that is worth talking about. So on Monday morning, Bitfarms appoints Ben Gagnon as Chief Executive Officer. So Ben's been at the company for 5 years. He's their Chief Mining Officer. He's kind of been the face of the company to a certain extent. We had Ben on the channel a while back. He runs their mining operations. And, we've talked at great length on this channel. It's my opinion that Bitfarms operationally performs at a very high level. I know a lot of our members like Ben. We talked on the members only live stream several times about why don't they just make Ben the CEO? And ultimately, after months and months without a CEO, and they did have an external search going on to get a CEO, this is what they ended up doing. They hired from within. So I think there was a lot of pressure to fill this position. I like Ben. I think, I know a lot of our members like Ben. I think he'll do a good job here, but I do think there was a lot of pressure to get this position filled. You don't want to be in a battle with another company that's attempting a hostile takeover and you don't even have a CEO. So, I personally have a high level of confidence in Ben, but we will see, because he was not the CEO. These are, obviously, there's a lot of different responsibilities that come along with CEO versus the more operational position that he was in, which was the chief mining officer. So we know he knows how to do that. I do expect Bitcoin, in my opinion, has had a series of good monthly operational reports. I think their July and August operational reports should be good. And I think that's going to make a big, big difference as to how this whole thing goes. Initially, and we'll take a look at the Bitfarms chart real quick. Okay. So you can see recently, as recently as June 20th, Bitfarms did run up to $3.28. So they have pulled back a little bit, and they're doing a little consolidating around $2.50. The initial offer was made privately in April 22nd, I think, by Riot to buy Bitfarms for $2.30 a share. So to me, that offer never made any sense. You can see, while that offer was out there and open, this stock got up to $3.28. So I don't think the market believed that that was going to happen. It's still at $2.53. They subsequently, a week or two ago, rescinded that offer. However, they are still aggressively pursuing trying to acquire Bitfarms. So I do think this is going to go on for the rest of the year. The real Gary Gensler wasn't Ben fired before. So I never knew of Ben being fired. He's been a key employee for them, and he's been, he does go out on the interview circuit. He's very public, and I'm very impressed by him. I think that he's done a great job. So, to mine, I don't know of anything. The press release says he's been there, he's been there for 5 years. And Robin is saying, Riot, give me your next bid offer, $9 or better. So that becomes the question, right? The how is this going to unfold? Because I know existing shareholders, particularly, I've held these shares for quite some time now. I'm not interested in selling them for $2.30. I'm not interested in selling them for $4. I think you would start to get shareholders pretty interested, in my opinion, at around $5. So I think that's the next, which is, more than double the initial offer. That would be north of a $2 billion market cap. So this starts to be a major acquisition. But Bitfarms does have plans to get to 21 exahash by the end of 2024 and 35 exahash in 2025. So, the combination of Riot and Bitfarms, if they both do 100% of everything they've talked about and they execute their plans to fruition, that would make Riot potentially the biggest Bitcoin miner. Marathon has gigantic plans as well, but the combination of these two companies would be large. But if they were to do a $2 billion takeover, which, that's at, $4.75 maybe. Now you're talking about potentially a partial or mostly stock transaction versus cash. They don't have $2 billion to go out and buy a Bitfarms. So we'll see. I see George, but I'm not sure if he had to step away and take a call. So let's check out of our current. Is Iris a buy after this short report? 62% say yes, 38% say no. So for me, it's a tough call. I got to dollar cost average into, Iris Energy just ran up a monumental amount. So, for a lot of people who are in at $3 or $4 or $5 or even $6 a share, pulling back to $11 or $12, even if it is a great buying opportunity, it could be, double or triple your cost basis in there. And so, not that that should necessarily matter. If it's a deal, it's a deal. So we'll end that poll. And Salmerlin Gaming is saying Bitfarms will never run because everyone keeps pushing a bunch of drama at them. So stupid. And I think he means the stock is never going to run up. I do think being in the middle of this mess, and now we know this is going to last until October 29th at a minimum. And, unless something changes in the middle, who knows? You never know what happens. But right now, we may be sitting here until October 29th before they even have this next meeting. So it could be months and months of this. So, and Matthew's saying the prior CEO of Bitfarms was fired. Update on the lawsuit. So the prior CEO of Bitfarms was fired. At first, it wasn't framed that way, and then ultimately it came out. At first, he was going to be a part of the transition plan to find the new CEO and help segue, and then ultimately this ended up in the firing of Jeffrey Morphy, I think it was his name. And so he sued them for $24 million. So I don't know what will come of that. That will probably take a long, long time. In the grand scheme of things, that's actually, obviously for any individual, that's a monumental amount of money. But for, Bitfarms as a company, clearly they don't want to lose that lawsuit, but it's not, it's not really changing their stock either way. And usually those will settle. Who knows? But that was a part of the ugliness that I think allowed Riot to go public and try and seize the moment, right? Publicly speaking, Bitfarms' growth plans hadn't kicked in yet. In April, they made this bid in April. They went public with it in May. Bitfarms' growth plans hadn't really started to kick in yet. They kicked in big time in their June operational update, and we should see more in July and August. And in the middle, they fired their CEO. They had no CEO. So it did seem like, a good time to try to strike, to try to take advantage of a situation, maybe execute a hostile takeover. But now it does seem like, in my opinion, Bitfarms is steering the ship back in the right direction. So we'll see what happens. Just do a quick poll and see what you guys think. I think we did this on our members only. So I'm trying to keep this poll simple. Again, just a yes or no. Will Riot acquire Bitfarms? Does this end in Riot buying Bitfarms in some manner or fashion, whether it be part cash, part stock, however hostile or not this turns out to be? Are they going to end up, is this going to end up where Riot buys Bitfarms? Or is this not happening? And I will tell you guys what I think after you guys vote. We're almost to 100 likes. Do us a favor, if you just got here, if you haven't smashed the like button yet, do us a great big favor. Please smash the like button. It does help the stream out. It helps the channel out, and we appreciate it. We're almost to, we're at 98 likes, so it will be much appreciated. I got a couple things I'm going to bounce around. I want to see if George gets back. I think he had a call for his business and he had to step away, but I'm hoping he steps back in a minute. But I've got plenty to talk about, so let's move on to... So that's kind of the Riot. Well, as long as we're talking about it, let's just finish out this Riot conversation, this Bitfarms Riot conversation. So on the very same day, 1 hour and 15 minutes after Bitfarms announced they had a new CEO, Riot launched a website called www.abetterbitfarms.com. So you got to go through this cautionary note regarding forward-looking statements. So there's a whole disclaimer here you have to agree to get to their site. And this is what it is. So this is a site Riot created, A Better Bitfarms. It's time to fix Bitfarms' broken corporate governance. So this is their big argument. And I have to tell you, I just don't know how much this resonates with retail investors. When I think about a stock, and obviously, you know, management is very important, but I really don't sit here and go, you know, how's their corporate governance going? I'm looking at their monthly updates. How many Bitcoin did they mine? How much exahash do they have online? Are they growing? Are they sticking to their growth plans? Are they efficiently mining Bitcoin versus the amount of, you know, number of Bitcoin versus the amount of exahash they have versus their peers? I'm looking at all of those types of things, like what's going on with the company. So corporate governance is a very generic term. They're fixated on this situation, and it's their argument. They lay out their argument. Bitfarms, okay, so botched CEO succession, 5 Bitfarms CEOs. So in the last 5 years, they're saying Bitfarms has had 5 CEOs. That's not a good look. I can't argue with that. They're saying entrenchment maneuvers, 15% poison pill. They're saying typically that's a 20% poison pill. Well, we just saw this does step up to a 20% poison pill. So again, I don't know how much a retail investor cares at what point and when a poison pill kicks in. No credible strategic alternatives process. 13 months of attempting to engage with Bitfarms regarding a potential combination of Bitfarms and Riot. So I don't know what the 13 months are. They made an offer on April 22nd. That offer was for $2.30. To me, I believe that offer was absolutely laughable. I've said so all along. I just don't think there was any real chance. Unless something bigger underlying that we knew nothing about was terribly wrong with Bitfarms, it just never seemed like that. That offer seemed silly, in my opinion. And I will tell you, I like Riot. I have shares in Riot. So, you know, I'm not bashing Riot, and probably a lot of you may be frustrated with Riot because their stock has been lagging and underperforming. Out of all the 19 Bitcoin mining stocks, and now the 12 that we've cut it down to that we follow on this channel, Riot has been the worst performing stock out of all the Bitcoin miners in the year 2024. Out of the 12 that we are now following, the 12 large Bitcoin miners, and in a minute I'll show you a list of those 12 miners. So their stock has been lagging. And I know Bitfarms' response has been, why don't you worry about your own company, and why don't you worry about your own corporate governance? So, you know, I don't know who's right or wrong. This is starting to be, you know, tit for tat, and I'm not sure how much, you know, regular retail investors care about, you know, what's being discussed and happening on this website right here. But what this does go to is, you know, Riot's dug in. They're not going anywhere. So this situation will continue. And I don't know how it will end. Let's see what you guys think. Will Riot acquire Bitfarms? So this is pretty split. 40 right now. So if you have not voted and you're on a device where you can do so, weigh in. Do you think Riot is going to end up acquiring Bitfarms? This went way up from the last time we did this vote. Right now, 41% think yes, when this is all said and done, Riot is going to acquire Bitfarms. So I will tell you, my opinion is that they will not acquire Bitfarms. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I just don't see, it would be such a gigantic acquisition. You know, at the $4 or $5 or $6 that I think this would need to happen at, it would just be such a massive acquisition. But I don't know. George, let me know if you're back in or if you're still on another call.
I'm back in. I'm almost done. I'm putting together cabinets.
Oh.
Isn't that funny?
You're working overtime.
And Chance needed my help.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's important.
Don't ever try to flip a house in a different state. Rules to live by.
Well, yeah, that's what George is in the middle of right now. But it usually works out in the end. For George. I don't mean that in general. So that's what's going on with Bitfarms and Riot. So, George, right now, 38% of the people that voted think that Riot will acquire Bitfarms when this is all said and done with.
Well, I mean, you got to back the money, Tom.
So you're thinking yes?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a long fight.
Well, that is the one thing we can agree on. It seems like this could take easily the rest of this year to hash out one way or the other.
Hang on, sorry, I came back in.
And a protracted argument between these two, I don't think helps either one of their stocks. The one thing that sits on the other side of that is both of them, in my opinion, had a very good June operational monthly update. So if those continue and they do, each company does what they're supposed to do, maybe both of these stocks will keep moving even though they are tied up in this argument with each other. But it does feel like it's holding both. Go ahead, George.
I just want people to start rotating money into Riot again, like the big money.
Yeah, it's still under $10. So if we go, let's take a look at Riot, because, you know, Riot is the biggest underperformer, and then I'll go to that chart in a minute as well. Right, if I just zoom out a little bit, you'll see, I mean, back in February of 2024, Riot was over $18. It was nearly double where it is right now. This was a little bit of a double top. This was December of 2023, and then again in February of 2024, in the middle of the month, at the end of the month. So, you know,
we gotta go. I gotta run. I'm sorry.
All right, George, enjoy your weekend.
See you, dudes. See you guys. Bye.
So you'll see before that, in the middle of 2023, Riot was over $20. So, I mean, these are very low numbers Riot is trading at. And you'll see it's been really consolidating for months and months. So, I don't know. I had been saying I do think we need to see more out of their monthly operational reports. I thought June was a really nice step in the right direction. If that continues in July and August, maybe we'll start to see some movement. Of course, obviously, it makes a difference when Bitcoin gets out of its funk, because if we go to the 1-day chart on Bitcoin, you're going to see after this giant run up in just a few days, right? We went from, under 52,000, and we had a 20% run up in 3 days. That was back at the end of February. Since then, so March, April, May, June, and now almost half of July, we have been going, sideways inside of a range. And like I said, really lately, we're hanging out at the very bottom of this range. I know last week, I will tell you, and actually the fear still exists. We're going to go to that next. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about much lower numbers, testing 52,000, testing 48,000, 44,000, 40,000. And so that speaks to the fact that if I go to the fear and greed index, for the first time in a year and a half, we are in extreme fear. We hit 25 on the fear and greed index today. We did hit 24 one time within the last week. 26. So this is an 18-month low. It was really, I think you have to go back to 2022. This is the last time we were at 25 in extreme fear on the fear and greed index. So, that may sound like a bad thing, but actually I think this is a good thing, a healthy thing. These are the technical things you're looking to reset before we get that next leg up in Bitcoin. So, you can see a month ago, we were in greed. We spent several months, over 70 in greed, and we got back to neutral, and then we hit fear, and now today, extreme fear. So, I don't think we need to spend a long time down here, but this is a part of the process. This is a part of the volatility. I feel like this is a part of the bottoming out process. So that's why I don't know, where the bottom is. Maybe this was the bottom. Maybe it wasn't. But we're starting to see, right, the other thing that I would look at is if you look at the daily RSI, there's really starting to be a bullish divergence. You can see as we hit on Bitcoin, as we hit a lower low here, from here to here, we're starting to hit higher highs on the RSI. So that's what's known as a bullish divergence. And really, we go from here to here so that it's the same time frame. From here to here, you're seeing a lower low and a higher high. that would typically indicate potentially there's a bullish divergence and that the next move is to the upside. The only thing is, I would caution everybody, with all the other things that are going on, these technicals, no one indicator is always correct, and even as you start to see a lot of things line up, and I think we're starting to see a lot of things line up to show that this is a bottom. You never know. With Bitcoin, there can always be a whammy, and I would point out the FTX situation, right? It looked like back then we had bottomed out on Bitcoin, and then all of a sudden FTX hit, and we went another couple of $1,000s. That's when we got down to about 15,600, which was the very, very bottom. I think that was like November 9th or something like that of 2022. We kind of double bottomed in November and December of 2022. Since then, we've been in an 18 or 19 month bull run, but obviously the last 4 months of which we've been pretty sideways. So we've taken a breather. Having said that, it feels like with the ETFs, maybe we got a little bit ahead of ourselves, right? We had a gigantic run up. For the first time in the history of Bitcoin, we hit a new all-time high prior to the halving. So, we may have gotten a little bit ahead of ourselves, and now we're taking some time to consolidate, which is why I think we don't know, when that next move is. While, my personal opinion is we're still right in the middle of the bull market, and the big push to the upside typically comes much later than this after the halving. We're only 3 months after the halving here. Sometimes it's a year or more after the halving before we make the giant move to the upside for Bitcoin. And for the Bitcoin miners. So it's both. Okay, so some good news, because one of the big pieces of FUD out there was Germany had about 50,000 Bitcoin. They recently started selling that Bitcoin, and the concern was, flooding the market with a supply of 50,000 Bitcoin was going to put a lot of downward pressure on Bitcoin. In addition to that, we know some amount of that Mt. Gox is potentially, in all likelihood, going to end up back on the market, although they're going to be giving that back in Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin is going to be, and they've already begun doing so. So for those of you not familiar, a lot of, that was the largest exchange in the world back in 2014. It was hacked. A lot of their Bitcoin was stolen. People are starting to now get paid their Bitcoin back. So they're getting it paid back in Bitcoin. So, a lot of those people may hold their Bitcoin. A lot of them may sell their Bitcoin. It is unknown yet exactly what exactly how much Bitcoin is going to go onto the market and how much the market has an appetite and at what price the buyers will come in and buy that up. But I will tell you this. I think there was a gigantic bullish sign this week. So let me find this. This was yesterday. Germany almost done selling Bitcoin, holding less than 5,000 tokens after latest moves. So they had, just a few weeks ago, they had 50,000 Bitcoin. So they've sold 90% of their Bitcoin, according to this article. Thursday was another big day of transfers to exchanges linked to German authorities, blockchain data shows. Now, the last piece is, just because they put it on exchange doesn't mean they're done selling 100% of it, but they have now moved 45 out of the 50,000 Bitcoin onto exchange. So Bitcoin wallets linked to the German authorities transferred a total of 10,567 Bitcoin worth over 600 million in multiple batches during the day. So that was just yesterday. So it's been day after day after day that Bitcoin has been moving money onto exchange. And through all of that, if you look at the chart, that's these days right here. So it seems like there is a big appetite in the market, even for those, that's 45,000 additional Bitcoin versus, what normally would be out on the market. And it's been consumed without Bitcoin having to crash. So Bitcoin's held. I think that is a very, very strong signal. Scott Richardson said, thanks, Tom. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Scott. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks for joining us. The real Gary Ginsler said the 45K German Bitcoin dump was noticeable. So, this is when most of this dump happened here in, and I maybe drew this a little bit, but these days were not the big dump. They still held the majority of their Bitcoin after this move down. This is really when they got rid of most of their Bitcoin. So I think that was very strong price action, all things considered. Now, if we go back to where we were, let's see if I still have that open. If we go back to the DXY, maybe you could see the selling pressure, because with the DXY doing this, we maybe should have had a big run up in Bitcoin. Instead of that, we kind of went sideways. So that could have been the effect right there of Germany putting a lot of coins onto the market. But if we go to, let me find this chart. So one of the major buyers of this, you're going to see the ETFs have come back in. They are buying Bitcoin again. So they had a period of time, they had a period where 9 out of 10 days they were red, and some of them were very red days. But now you're going to see the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and this was yesterday. Obviously, we don't know today yet. So Monday, 294, almost 295 million of buying from the ETFs. These are the spot ETFs in the US, and you'll see them listed above the top of this screen here. So 294 million, 216 million, 147 million, and then about 79 million yesterday. I expect today's going to be probably green in all likelihood as well, meaning there will be inflow into the ETF. So the ETF, that is a potential gigantic buyer, and it does seem like they are providing some level of support for Bitcoin as some of these one-off events, right? Germany getting rid of their 50,000, that's not going to happen another 100 times. That's a one-off. That's one time. Now, the Mt. Gox, however many Bitcoin that ends up being, that's one time. And remember, we've been getting Mt. Gox fear and sell-offs for, this happened 10 years ago. We are now finally to the point where these people are actually getting their Bitcoin back. And so we'll see, can that be offset by the buying pressure from the ETFs? Will retailer investors come back in? Can we find some momentum here? And you guys have seen with the volatility, momentum is a funny thing. This can go from extreme greed to extreme fear. I'm going to go back to this. In 1 month, we went from greed to extreme fear. So just remember, that's kind of going backwards, but we can go back the other way. And I would prefer we don't run back that fast. It would be nice to get back to neutral and then, work our way up, and let's put a run together. So this leaves a lot of room to the upside, I guess is what I say. That's what you want to see on these type of technical indicators. When you have this long period up here, you can see this is 70. So between 70 and 80 from May 15th, to June 18th, that was over a month in greed. And what happened? A big giant sell-off after that. So that's what happens. But now, here we are. This is an 18-month low on the Fear and Greed Index, and you can see we're getting some consolidation under 30, and we have not had that. We touched 30 one time. Here, I can't get this exactly. September 12th of 2023. We flashed down to 30. I don't even remember what happened on that day. Something must have happened because we were hanging out in the 40 to 50 range. So that was one day. And then we bounced off it a couple of times last month, and now we're having some consolidation down here. So this is a really, really nice reset, a really healthy reset in my opinion. And again, that doesn't mean it's straight up from here. So, obviously we don't know exactly what these time frames are. And we just saw, to wrap up that piece of the conversation, this was massive FUD. And fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That doesn't mean it was false, but there was 50,000 Bitcoin that looked like we're going to go back onto the market and create a massive supply of Bitcoin. Well, it looks like we're 90% of the way through that, and Bitcoin held up, in my opinion, very strong. This was a very strong showing, in my opinion, by Bitcoin in light of this. So when you think about, however many Bitcoin end up back onto the market with Mt. Gox, and opinions vary anywhere from, as little as 15 or 20,000 to numbers much, much bigger than that. There's a total of 140,000 Bitcoin in the entire Mt. Gox situation. So some number much smaller than that, I would think, will be what ends up back on the market. We don't know what that number is. We won't know until it's all done happening. But we can see, I think this was a giant signal. And the other thing to note is we have, since the ETF started in January, you have Grayscale that has dumped over 300,000 Bitcoin back onto the market. So Bitcoin has had a huge run up in that period of time. Because if we go back to the chart, remember on January 11th, right? This is, so we were bouncing between, 40 and 48,000 back in January. It looks like January 11th, the big spike when the ETFs were approved was up to 48,000. We did get back down to 40,000. In the meantime, Grayscale sold over 300,000 Bitcoin, and we've run up as high as 73,800 and currently at 57,600. So there is a lot of potential buying pressure out there. It's just, will we have short windows of time where we hit lower numbers? How long is this sideways thing going to go? This does feel like a very long time, and it is 4 months in cryptocurrency world. 4 months is a brutally long period of time. But I want to go to, let's just quickly take a look at, let's talk about the Bitcoin miners. So this is what the Bitcoin miners did this week. So this is last Friday where all the Bitcoin miners closed versus this Friday. So this is the first week really in the last 3 months where you're going to see Bitcoin here. Bitcoin was up 2% on the week. We had 4 of the 12 that were following outperform Bitcoin. 1 performed the same. And then, we had 7 here underperform. Now, Iris Energy we went through. There was a short report. So this is kind of an outlier. This massive move to the downside was due to a short report. So, but BitDeer was down 8%. Bitfarms down 5%. TeraWulf down 5%. TeraWulf's been the best performing Bitcoin miner in the year 2024. So again, I don't get too worried on a stock that's more than doubled this year. Actually, let's go year to date. As of last Friday, so that doesn't include this week's pullback, TeraWulf was up 133% this year. So for them to pull back 5%, a little profit taking, nothing to see here in my opinion. And then here we can see year to date, you can see Riot is in, of the 12 stocks that we are now following, Riot's in dead last, down 38%. Now, Riot was up 2% this week, so that still leaves them, solidly in last place. So this was not the way things have been looking. And I'm going to show you last week. So, last week, Bitcoin was down 6%, and you had, Iris Energy was up 33%, TeraWulf was up 25%. You had multiple of these up double digits last week. So, and that has been the trend. So if we all go all the way back from that April 16th day that we talked about being the low, you'll see all the Bitcoin miners are green. Some of these have doubled. Some of these have tripled. Some of these have more than tripled, getting close to a quadruple. So, a big, big, big run up for a lot of these in the last 3 months. So when I see a week like this is bucking the trend a little bit. So, what we can hope is this is not the beginning of a trend reversal. It seems like the Bitcoin miners we're starting to make their move. We're 3 months into really solid performance. And year to date, we're starting to see some of the Bitcoin miners pass Bitcoin in performance. Whereas on April 16th, 3.5 months into the year, at that point, we were following 19 Bitcoin miners. 18 of them were red year to date, meaning they were down year to date, while Bitcoin was up about 60% at that time. So you can see the Bitcoin miners have had a massive, massive recovery in the last 3 months. So, but, you know, that should not be the end. We would still, obviously, if you are invested in the Bitcoin miners, you're not hoping or thinking that, you know, that was the run and it's over. We should still be, historically speaking, early in this process. But, you know, history is no guarantee of what's going to happen this time around. So I'll end this poll. Will Riot acquire Bitfarms? So this was a very, very close poll. 41% say yes, Riot, at the end of this, Riot's going to end up owning Bitfarms. 59% say no, they will not acquire Bitfarms. So I think we're not going to have the answer to that for a long, long time, maybe until the end of this year, possibly even longer than that. The sooner this wraps up, the better, in my opinion, for both companies, depending on how it resolves. So it is now 60-40. I'll end the poll at that. Just looking at my notes to see if there's anything we have not gone through yet. So that gets me pretty much the way through my notes of what happened this week with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. We went through, you know, the big news this week. My big takeaway from this week was a very positive CPI inflation report. And I'm just going to go back to, we now have the market pricing in an 88.1% chance of a 25 basis point rate cut in September and a 6.3% chance of a 50 basis point rate cut in September, or between July and September meetings. So, you know, that's basically 94.5% chance. The market is building, the futures are building in that we will get a rate cut in September. I really do believe we're going to get a rate cut in September, but obviously any one data point could scare the Fed into not doing this. It does seem like this is this is what would be very consistent with what they're talking about. And the reason I'm wrapping up on this and talking about this is this really is the biggest thing that dictates what's going on in the market. If we get 1 or 2 or 3 rate cuts between now and the end of the year for the small cap stocks, for the risk on stocks, for Bitcoin, all of those things typically would tend that, in historically speaking, that would be very good news for the risk on investments. And Bitcoin, you know, has been that over the course of time, given its inverse relationship to the DXY, which is the strength of the US dollar. So rate cuts would typically tend to decrease the strength of the US dollar. So that would decrease the DXY. And so, you know, all of those things would point to the fact that, you know, in all likelihood, rate cuts are going to be good for Bitcoin. Historically speaking, that's kind of been the way it goes. So we'll close out by looking at the Bitcoin 15-minute chart. So you can see we did find a little bit of support here. We had a nice run up all day long. The last 2 hours of the day, Bitcoin sold off. But I do want to just close out by saying all the Bitcoin miners were green. The 12 were following, plus even all the microcap, nanocap Bitcoin miners. Everything on my list is green from top to bottom today. So this was a positive Friday, which is, it's always nice to end the week on a positive note, on a high note. Hopefully everybody's portfolio was green today, and hopefully you guys had a good week. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. I want to thank everybody for joining us on the stream. Special thanks to all of the members. And if you have not smashed the like button, I would appreciate it. It does help out the channel. And of course, if you enjoy this content, consider subscribing to the channel if you have not yet. Everybody, please have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week.